The moment you've been waiting for has finally arrived. Sousuke Sagara versus Leonard Testarossa, and it is lit as Being a longtime fan of Full Metal Panic, I can say without hyperbole that this was probably my favorite episode of the entire franchise. It encapsulated everything that is perfect about this show, and I think it's the moment where we get to see Sousuke Sagara at his absolute lowest. I think I saw him display more emotion in this episode than in the entire franchise. That and the fact that we just got tons of amazing mecha action, lots of really great military intrigue, the formal introduction of Wraith, who's made a few appearances in the series, but now we finally get to see her for real, and it had an amazing ending where the Daedanon was able to go out into the ocean and it encountered a behemoth, and it was just explosive. So let's talk about some of the key points of this episode. This one is all about Sousuke, who is desperately trying to save all of Kaname's friends, in particular Kyoko, who has a bomb strapped directly to her. He orders Kaname to stay behind, but she's actually able to help out a lot by adding some upgrades to the Arbalest, which allows him to send out this jamming signal, which makes it so basically everybody's not going to go boom. That, and we also got to see that the class president actually got to help out in this episode by evacuating all of the students, claiming that Sousuke had released some form of deadly poison gas, which hilariously at this point the students expect, and it just seems kind of like a common annoyance for them. But it's sort of like the perfect diversion that allows Sousuke to get into the school while the Arbalest jams the signal. He makes his way to the top, and we get the whole classic cut the blue wire, cut the red wire scene. He manages to save Kyoko when suddenly that brand new villain appears, has him at gunpoint, and reveals everything about him to Kyoko, when suddenly their teacher just shows up and they decide to take her hostage, and that's when we realize that this is not actually the teacher. It is Wraith in disguise, and then she proceeds to cap a couple dudes in the head in a very realistic and super violent fashion. Even Sousuke gets in on the killing fun. He's practically Solid Snake in this episode, the way he takes people out with one shot and even takes out a guy with a knife in a scene that's just it just actually sends a shiver down my spine. It's absolutely ridiculous. But basically, this is all just a build-up to him eventually getting into the Arbalest, trying to escape, and then running into Leonard Testarossa, who makes an amazing entrance in this episode right here. In fact, all of the mecha action in this episode is some of the most solid that I've actually seen. It all began when we saw that Arbalest jump off of that building and then skid across the asphalt, kicking it all up in the air, and it was just a big wide shot of it doing that. But it's followed by all of these arm slaves that belong to Amalgam coming out of the woodwork and attacking him, and Sousuke just makes short work of all of them by throwing his knife, taking out their legs, getting them at point-blank range, and utilizing the terrain to his advantage. It's one of the most thrilling sequences that I've seen from the episode, but it's Leonard Testarossa who just steals it right here, mostly because of the fact that he jumps out of this massive airplane and we don't even see it. We just see the airplane passing Sousuke, and he notices that the hangar is open and something might have dropped. The next thing you know, that mech is right behind him, and the design of his arm slave is so sharp and great. It's kind of like the smaller mechas that he actually uses, his personal bodyguards, except that he's got these like really gnarly like pointed horns on its head. It's got the singular blue glowing visor, and it's all black, and it just appears very sharp, and it's clearly one of the most advanced, if not the most advanced arm slave that we've actually seen from the entire franchise. And the way that Leonard uses it is awesome. It literally is like an extension of his body. He fights kind of like a martial artist, and there's this one kick move he does to Sousuke in this episode that's just so devastating. And not only does he like fight Sousuke, he absolutely demolishes him. He freaking goes Thanos on the Avengers on them. Like, he seriously just dismantles the Arbalest, and Al sort of like dies right there, the AI. I'm sure he's going to return, but it's an actual sad moment. And Sousuke is just standing there, bleeding out, and just pointing his gun and just firing it at this arm slave, knowing that he's about to die. But that's when Kaname decides that she can't watch any longer. She gets involved, and she allows herself to be captured, which really pisses off Sousuke. Like I said, there's a lot of emotion from him in this episode, and seeing him scream, claiming that he'll bring her back, and him biting down on his lip, and almost to the point where it looks like it's going to start bleeding, like, you can just feel the intense anger and just I can't wait to see more of that. And now that we know that Kaname is the enemy, crazy things are going to happen. We're going to have to come up with a big rescue mission to save her. Now, that could have been the episode, and I would have been satisfied. It was really solid. It also had a lot of intense drama for the fact that while they did manage to save Kyoko, she actually got caught in this like massive blast, which caused this shrapnel to get stuck in her stomach. So she's undergoing like immediate surgery from Wraith, and she doesn't even know if she's going to make it alive. This is one of the things that actually triggers Kaname to get involved. She doesn't want to see her friends get hurt anymore. But the end of the episode, we have a fantastic scene of the surviving members of Merida Island getting ready to make their way onto the sub. One of the soldiers ends up getting shot multiple times, but luckily Melissa shows up and cleans up. I love the scene where Melissa's claiming she's going to get revenge for everyone, and then freaking Tessa's saying the same thing, and they're both like, oh, I love that about you. It's just such a funny moment. And amidst all this violence, they arrive to the Datanon, where everybody's in formation, ready to go. They get in the sub, they head out, and they're immediately met by a massive behemoth. But instead of just trying to get away from it or fire at it with weapons, they just ram right into it, pushing it up into the air, which allows these other armed slaves to come in and just completely take them out in one clean shot. It's awesome, some of the coolest stuff that I've seen from the series, and it made me want so more. And there's actually more in the episode. We get one final scene with Sousuke actually returning to the classroom, which is very risky, I might add, and basically putting it all out there for everyone. That he's involved, he's the one who's been piloting the white armed slave, and that he's sort of responsible for everything that's been happening, and that he claims he's going to bring Kaname back, but this doesn't sit well with some of them. Ono D is not very happy about this at all, and gets to the point where he's almost going to punch him, but he ends up just turning into a crying bitch. But it's a big moment, because this is going to be a turning point for the series. We're probably not going to be in this school setting anymore, which to me, I'm okay with. The whole school setting in anime is so played out that I'm really ready to get away from it, and this season right here seems like it's doing everything in its power to actually make that happen, if only for how breakneck everything has been thus far. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, this episode rocked. So, what's the rundown on this episode of Full Metal Panic Invisible Victory? Just so much perfection from this episode, even with the CG animation. Sometimes CG animation can work. I think it works really well with mecha, but only because they are static, puppety kind of things. And all the action in this episode looked really solid and super fast. And surprisingly, even though it was CG animation, it felt like there was a lot of weight here. It's not the best looking CG animation that I've ever seen. My vote definitely goes to Land of the Lustrous for that one. But this one looked pretty good. I did enjoy it. And all the action scenes were incredibly thrilling. All of the emotion was also just kicked up to 11, whether it be the final scene of Kaname giving herself up and Sousuke being upset, or Leonard Testarossa finally displaying some extreme anger against Sousuke. That was a really intense moment and just made that battle seem all the more intense and awesome. I just really loved how it was handled. And the opening scene was incredibly thrilling, with Sousuke going through the school and saving Kyoko. Knowing that she might actually die is also kind of insane, although I'd like to imagine that she's probably going to be just fine. I don't think they're going to kill off a character like that, and if they did, whew, bold decision for the series. Really, this, like I said, was sort of the perfect encapsulation of everything that's good about Full Metal Panic, and that's why I'm going to give this episode a 5 out of 5. Check it out, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts about this episode of Full Metal Panic. If you did watch it, if you plan on seeing it, tell me what you liked or didn't like about the episode and what you hope to see from the future of Full Metal Panic Invisible Victory. Thank you guys for watching this review. I also want to do a quick little plug in here. Our podcast series, The Powerful Nerdcast, is back. We just did a very big episode that's over an hour long talking about Avengers Infinity War. It's very spoilerific, so just keep that in mind. But if you want to check it out, please do. Share it with your friends. And we'd love to hear some of your ideas for future topics for our podcast, because it's really fun to do and we love doing it. So there it is. Just see you guys next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.